Testing, 1, 2, 3. Sometimes when I use this microphone, I really breathe. I'm like, so I try not to do that. Hello there, guys. It's Joel here, aka Gallucks, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. And if you didn't already know this, I'm gay. I've always been gay. Watching this video will make you gay. Gay. Honestly, I didn't think that in 2023 I'd still be making a video like this. Like, I feel like I made a similar video back in like 2000 and something, 17, about hypebeast homophobia. And I feel like we've progressed so much since then. And then I realized we haven't really. Here we are again. This video is titled Men's Fashion Has a Problem. I'm looking at the homophobes, the straight men who are dumb. This one's for you guys. So, if you're new here, my name is Joel, aka Gallucks, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. When I have a microphone, it's always going to be a serious video or a Met Gala review, one or the other. But today is a serious video. Over the past few months, I guess, I've just been seeing a lot more and more homophobia, especially in the men's fashion space, on social media, whether that's Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, now Threads, I guess. Although I've not seen any homophobia on Threads. It's only been out a week though. And sites that I frequent all the time, Hypebeast, places like that. And it's just really frustrating because it just shows there's such a lack of education and understanding, especially from a straight bro who's interested in fashion but don't want none of that gay shit, if you know what I mean. Like, a homophobic person who is interested in fashion is like a paradox within themselves because it just doesn't make sense. They're a hypocrite, basically. I'm not saying you have to love the gays. I'm not saying you have to like be flying a flag at Pride every year. But you cannot have a love and interest in fashion without respecting and giving props to the queer community, because the entire fashion industry is built on the backs of the queer community. So in this video, I wanted to touch base. Obviously, it's only going to be a 20-30 minute video, depending on how long I ramble for. I don't want it to be too long, but obviously I cannot unpack the entirety of this subject within this YouTube video. So please do not think that this is the be all and end all. And obviously I am a straight passing, cisgendered, white, gay male. So this is obviously from my lens. Other people may have a complete different understanding on this topic, especially when things like gender identity and race are also involved as well. Like, this is just the tip of the iceberg. I'm just talking about homophobia in men's fashion, in the men's fashion space, especially in the online communities, because that is where I exist. That's where me, Gallucks, exists. And I'm in these spaces every single day, and I see it daily, more now than ever, especially since most social media apps have changed to an interest-based algorithm, mainly because of TikTok's impact. We are now seeing less and less of the people that we actually follow, and more of the people that the algorithm thinks that we should see. And actually, in my personal experience, this has had a much more negative effect on me personally than it has a positive one. My content used to get shown to audiences that chose to follow me. They like my style. They may or may not have known I was a homosexual. But they decided to press that follow or subscribe button. Now, my content can be shown to everyone and anyone under the sun who is using the app. And this exposes me to many more people who don't care about fashion, are homophobic, hate my style, which is absolutely fine. But for me, mentally, it has been a lot. I feel like social media used to be a safe space for me. And now it just feels like the wild, wild west. It's like I can post something and it could go viral with like millions of views, yes, which is supposedly a good thing. but it also takes me out of the space that I created with me and my followers, and now puts me more at risk online, especially mental health wise. And I know like Instagram, YouTube, TikTok are all just in the realm of wanting to help creators grow and give them even more exposure. But I'm very niche, and I know a lot of creators who are also very niche. So we're not going to be accepted and loved by everyone. You know, we're not Love Island star. So yeah, it's a bit of a tricky space at the moment. And like I said, I've seen so much homophobia in the past few months that I just felt like I wanted to speak on it. And I just wanted to educate some people into realizing how silly they seem and how much of a hypocrite they are. Because let's face it, if you have an ounce of love for the fashion industry, for specific designers, for the craft of clothing, anything to do with fashion, you have to respect that the queer community literally has the fashion industry to thank for everything. So yeah, it just becomes very confusing to me when people, especially like straight homophobic guys, are interested in fashion, and they're like interested in all these brands who literally have gay designers. They're literally like walking around wearing a Balenciaga cap thinking they're like hard as rocks, like hitting on all these women, being like, you like my Balenciaga? And it's like, Demna's gay. Literally everyone that worked at Balenciaga is gay. Same for Tom Ford. Same for Rick Owens is bisexual, by the way. Anyway, I have a list of gay designers, so we'll get into that. So there are a few points that I want to touch on throughout this video. The first is, what is homophobia? Oh, and you can also be gay and homophobic too. So let's not rule that out. I want to talk about the impact of the LGBTQ community on the fashion industry. And then I just want to sum it up by talking about the straight homophobic fashion paradox. And so, what is homophobia, I hear you ask? Well, let me tell you. Side note, my favorite thing is when you call someone homophobic or call out their homophobia or like transphobia or something like that, and they say that they're not scared of them, so they're not homophobic because they're not scared of them. It's like, that's not what it means. Homophobia does not mean that you're scared of someone. The actual dictionary definition of homophobia is dislike of or prejudice against gay people. Not that you're scared of them. So when they say that and they think that they ate, they did not eat. It makes no sense. Okay, so homophobia refers to prejudice, discrimination, or hostility directed towards individuals who identify as LGBTQ+. It is rooted in negative attitudes, beliefs, and biases against non-heterosexual orientations and non-cisgender identities. Homophobia can manifest in various ways, including prejudice and stereotyping. Homophobia leads to discriminatory actions, denying LGBTQ+ individuals equal rights, opportunities, and protections in various areas of life, including employment, housing, healthcare, and education. It is crazy to me that we are still discussing in this day and age, especially over in America, LGBTQ human rights. Like, that's a human being, and you're denying them the same right as someone else simply because of who they are, how they identify. Because what? Back in the day, before they even figured out how to invent electricity, some kooky man writing a book said he heard from a man in the sky that this was not okay. Like, absolutely not. This sounds like a mental illness to me. And if you're basing all of your beliefs on a book that was written thousands of years ago before we had all the knowledge and smarts that we have now, I'm sorry, you're done. Like, you have no room in this conversation because you have 0 brain cells and are not ready to enter the chat. It is laughable at this point if you are basing your sole hatred of the LGBTQ community based off the Bible. Just gonna say it. So homophobia can also be found in hate speech and verbal abuse, slurs, derogatory comments. This is a lot of what I've been seeing online. So a lot of like sick emojis or this is gay or unfollowed and stuff like this. It's happened countless times, not just to me, to every single gay, queer person that I know online. And also when major brands or corporations do anything remotely gay or queer, it is met with so much backlash from non-brain cell individuals that think of us as a lesser being based on what? And it's the way that they were brought up. It's slowly dying out, fingers crossed. I touch on this later in one of the articles that I found, but large proportion of younger people especially, we have so much information at our fingertips these days. Like, I'm of the generation that grew up in between not having the internet and having the internet, so I've kind of got a balance of everything. But the difference in talking to someone who grew up with the internet, with access to every single piece of information on the world you could possibly imagine, as opposed to someone who didn't have the internet, is a huge difference. Like, it's honestly crazy. So when everyone else dies, and passes away, hopefully everything will be okay. Homophobia can be violence and harassment, social exclusion, and obviously go to institutional and legal discrimination. It is scary that being your true and honest self can make you be seen in certain jurisdictions as a lesser being because you're not straight, which is so crazy. Like, I just don't understand how it's even a topic of discussion. It doesn't make sense. I blame religion first and foremost, but that's just me. But I think I'm right. It's interesting to know the different roots of homophobia in itself. And I think if you are homophobic or have homophobic views, then it is a good thing to ask yourself, like, why am I homophobic? Like, why do I hate these other human beings for no reason whatsoever? Cultural, social, religious, personal influences. If you think about it, we've been raised in a heteronormative society. Everyone is all the time. We see straight couples on TV. When kids are born, we're literally like, is it a boy or a girl? Like, are you going to get them a blue blanket or a pink blanket? It's like gender stereotypes are forced upon people without even realizing. This is one thing I hate, when kids are little and the mums and dads are like, oh, have you got a girlfriend? Are you going to get a girlfriend? Are you going to have to the son? And then to the little girls, they're like, oh, you're going to get a boyfriend? It's like your husband. Are you going to have a baby? All these like built-in ways of heteronormativity are pushed upon us, even as infants, which is so crazy to me. And obviously, like, it's difficult because that's all everyone has ever known. So all these like straight parents that had that done to them when they were little, or saw that as growing up, do that to their children, and it just carries on. And I dread to think, like, the amount of men, women, everyone in between that might have felt a different way growing up, but, pushed it to the back of their minds and dismissed any of those thoughts or feelings because they felt that they would be like persecuted or it wasn't normal, which is exactly what we're talking about now. Obviously, we've made amazing strides in the past 20, 30 years to letting people accept themselves as who they are, whether they're gay, straight, transgender, non-binary, anything that has been kind of shunned in the past. I feel like Gen Z especially are unafraid to be their authentic self and how they feel from within. But obviously, that's a small percentage that feel okay with it. And I feel like there is going to be a lot of people that aren't okay with it, especially if their parents are homophobic, transphobic, this kind of thing. Because if you're growing up in that environment, again, it's how you are raised to think. So cultural and social factors, basically. Lack of education. I remember in school, we had no lessons on gender identity. We had no lessons on homosexuality. It was very lacking in terms of a 360 view of the world when it came to sexuality. I don't know what it's like, obviously, in schools now. But obviously, again, in places like Florida, they tried to remove all the books from every single school to stop kids learning because they thought that if they read a book about being gay, they would become gay. And that, my friends, is the level of stupidity that we are trying to deal with. Religious beliefs. Religious teachings, doctrines, as well as their interpretations can influence attitudes towards homosexuality. Some religious beliefs view same-sex relationships as immoral or contrary to religious teachings, which can contribute to the development of homophobia. If you're homophobic because like I said earlier, if you're homophobic because of religion, that is so wild to me. Our society has grown and developed and advanced so much in the last 100 years. And as we grow and progress, it's important to look back and realize things that were said or things that were done are wrong, especially when they don't make sense in today's society, and if they don't add value. You know, there's so many things that when we look back, we think, oh, we were wrong about that, like that was dumb. And we just haven't got to a place yet where we've said that about a lot of things to do with religion. And I think, again, that's because religion is so ingrained, well, it was so ingrained into our society. And it's so funny that a lot of the things in America right now are against like drag queens or the LGBT or pride, calling us groomers or trying to make their children gay and stuff like this, when it's actually on record the most popular job of being a pedophile is a priest. So you can take that and shove it up your ass. Anyway, so yeah, religion is a completely different video, but it contributes a lot to homophobia. Also, from a gay man, Jesus sounds like the gayest person I've ever heard of. Like,
I mean, no one's gonna mention Jesus is kind of gay. He's hanging out with 12 men and a hooker in 0 BC, and not her. You're the so I don't want to hear it.
There's also a fear and threat to gender norms. So homophobia can arise from a fear of challenging traditional gender roles and norms. A lot of fashion is to do with, especially men's fashion in recent years, has really broken barriers in terms of masculinity and femininity and mixing them together. Like, when I was younger, you would not see a guy with like a Louis Vuitton handbag, crossbody bag, or anything like that. You would not see guys caring about how they look, their hair, how they dress. It has changed so much, especially with social media. And we see a lot of like more metrosexual guys now, that straight men that care about how they look, they're interested in fashion, they're interested in their personal style. Back then, when I was younger, anyone that had any bit of ounce of self-respect of their appearance or how they dressed was seen as gay. I was called gay so many times at school, or bullied, beaten up, spat on, because people thought that I was gay. Back then as well, when I was younger, I was still figuring out who I was. And all these people telling me that I was gay, I was like, am I gay? I could be gay. I didn't read a book and was exposed to being gay. I was literally bullied. And then I realized I was gay. Bullying works. This kind of goes into the school one as well. So actually, the last thing about being homophobic, like what causes homophobia, is peer pressure. Someone might have just joined in to like fit in with the crowd and like be homophobic because everyone else is. Do you know what I mean? None of these factors justify or excuse homophobia. They're just pointing out and they're just highlighting what can contribute. And I think it's important to, if you experience any of these, to confront yourself and ask yourself, why am I homophobic? What does homophobia mean to me? Why am I so angry or mad or disgusted by something that does not affect me in any way, shape, or form? Because if you hate or don't like a group of people or specific person because of who they are and how, like, nothing, it won't affect you in any way, shape, or form. Do you know what I mean? You're a bigot. You're a hypocrite. You're a bigot. You are an idiot. I do think it is possible for people to evolve, change, understand, confront their own opinions on homophobia, especially with more understanding and knowledge going into the subject. I just wish more people would, if you know what I mean. So this is a very brief rundown of the LGBTQ community's impact on the fashion industry. So in the early 20th century, a lot of queer individuals, the fashion industry was a lot different back then. It was very exclusive. It was very hidden. And a lot of the people behind the scenes were queer designers, dressmakers, stylists. Many renowned fashion figures were part of the LGBTQ plus community as well, such as Christian Dior. So in the 1960s and 70s, the LGBTQ plus community started to gain visibility during the sexual liberation movement. Fashion became a means of expressing identity, and queer individuals embraced clothing that challenged traditional gender norms. Drag queens and performers played a significant role in subverting gender expectations through fashion. Punk and androgyny. The punk movement in the 1970s challenged mainstream fashion by embracing androgyny, subverting gender norms again, and rejecting traditional beauty standards. In the 1980s to the 1990s, the AIDS crisis impacted the fashion industry deeply. Many designers, models, and industry professionals were lost to the disease. The fashion industry then counteracted this and responded to the crisis with lots of fundraising initiatives such as benefit fashion shows and collaborations with organizations like AMFA. So in the late 20th century, we saw high fashion designers like Jean-Paul Gaultier and Alexander McQueen incorporating queer aesthetics and exploring non-binary identities in their collections, pushing the boundaries of gender in fashion. In modern day, many fashion brands and designers actively collaborate with LGBTQ plus organizations. They bring out pride collections and champion transgender models and activists. While progress has been made, challenges persist, such as lack of representation and the exploitation of queer aesthetics without supporting the LGBTQ plus causes. Men's fashion, I'm looking at you. Nevertheless, the fashion industry continues to be influenced by the creativity, resilience, and activism of the LGBTQ plus community. So I kind of want to now touch back on men's fashion. So I've been reading some articles, especially this one from High Snobiety, Homophobia in Streetwear. This little snippet says, the cis white male dominance of streetwear has never been as disrupted as it has been over the past decade when it entered the high fashion industry. And with it, the plethora of LGBTQ plus designers. Riccardo Tisi's Rottweiler t-shirt for Givenchy, followed by his first limited edition Nike Air Force One collab in 2013, changed the streetwear demographic. We did see in that moment of time a shift from where streetwear became luxury. Riccardo Tisi, the Rottweiler, Kanye West and Jay-Z, Watch the Throne, the whole album aesthetic and everything that they wore was Givenchy. Riccardo Tisi is a gay man. His entire body of work influenced a generation in how they dressed and carried themselves and what they thought was cool. Riccardo Tisi, a gay man, single-handedly influenced an entire generation by dressing and styling Kanye West. Obviously, Kanye chose to work with him, but he's always kind of relied on a gay man to uphold his entire aesthetics. And his whole Donda era was basically designed by Demna, another gay man. They basically engineered the whole of the Yeezy Gap aesthetic. So behind Kanye West's aesthetic every time was a gay man. Like, that's just basically it. And so all these guys walking around in their Yeezy long sleeves, Givenchy Rottweiler tees back in the day, it's like, you've been dressed by a homosexual, but you're homophobic. Like, make it make sense. You're a hypocrite. You owe everything from your style identity to a homosexual. Tim Jones was one of the earliest pioneers of merging street and luxury when he was creative director for Umbre back in the early 2000s, through to his Stussy collaboration at Dior Homme. Shane Oliver's heavily queer influenced brand signified a new era for streetwear from the underground. So basically, the High Snobiety article just kind of highlights all the queer coded moments from kind of the evolution from streetwear to luxury. and how there's this like huge fan base for men's fashion now, more so than there ever was before, and how we have kind of moved into a more kind of androgynous place with men's fashion, yet there is still such like an underlying problem of homophobia within the fashion industry itself, which is very, very strange. Like, for an example, Hypebeast recently spoke about an artist, and they used a queer image from the artist as the cover photo for that article, and all of the comments and replies were like disgusting, or I hate this woke culture that we live in, and all this. It's like, it's just two men kissing. Like, get over yourself, like grow up, you literal baby, throwing your toys out the pram because you're seeing a different normal shown to you. It doesn't matter, just carry on scrolling. This is what I'm saying. It's like, you don't have to love us, you have to understand that we are no less than you just because of who we love and who we are. And if you can't wrap your tiny little brain cells around that, then you do not deserve to be in the fashion community and in the fashion space, because there is zero room and zero tolerance for idiots and clowns like you who think that you owe nothing to the queer community, who literally put the clothes on your back. I will leave links to all of these in the description box below. But I found this one super interesting, but it touched on for the whole Gen Z discussion I touched on earlier. It was really interesting. It basically says, furthermore, the Gen Z demographic within streetwear are considered advocates of a belief that gender is an outdated construct. Statistics show that 38% of Gen Zers strongly agreed that gender does not define a person. Although brands are rapidly challenging their pre-existing values and ideologies regarding gender norms, only a handful of smaller streetwear brands show direct displays of representation for the LGBTQ plus community. I've also left some links to other articles that discuss this topic if you wanted to do some further reading and research yourself. Okay, this is just a Wikipedia list of LGBTQ plus fashion designers. Just so you're aware, I'm not going to say all of them because there's a lot, but I'll just say ones that like stand out to me. Alexander McQueen, Jonathan Anderson, which is JW Anderson and Loewe now, Giorgio Armani, Cristobal Balenciaga, Pierre Balmain, Tom Brown, Telfar Clemens, Demna, Christian Dior, Tom Ford, Stefano Gabbana, John Galliano, John Paul Gaultier, Nicolas Ghesquière, Hubert de Givenchy, Marc Jacobs, Simon Port-Jacquemus, Calvin Klein, Michael Kors, Karl Lagerfeld, Christian Louboutin, Thierry Mugler, Rick Owens, Yves Saint Laurent, Eddie Slimane, Dries Van Noten, Gianni Versace. That is a whole ass list of brands and designers, especially ones that I know all the straighties wear, that are gay. So the next time you put on a piece of clothing and you have a thought of being homophobic or disrespecting someone on social media, you remember that this is you. So I guess to kind of sum up this whole mishmash of like thoughts and ideas, I want to say that the fashion industry's problem of homophobia is a glaring contradiction to its supposed celebration of diversity, self-expression, and artistic freedom. By confronting this issue head-on, the industry has an opportunity to break down barriers, challenge norms, and become a true champion of inclusivity. Embracing LGBTQ plus voices, recognizing their contributions, and fostering an environment of respect and acceptance will not only benefit the industry itself, but also contribute to a more equitable and progressive society as a whole. And that's it really. Obviously there's a lot more to unpack, and there's so many like subdivisions and categories of this as well, but I just want to be like, hey, if you're homophobic, think about it, why, and then learn and don't be. So I think that is all that I have to say today. If you enjoyed this video, do give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I think it's going to be pretty spicy, especially because I said that thing about Jesus. Yeah, if you want to see my personal style more, you can follow me over on Instagram and TikTok as well. Also, if you want to hear more serious chats from me, let me know topics in the comments below, and I can do a little deep dive research and see what I think about different things. I don't know. Anyway, I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.